Thank you for that lovely introduction and for that warm welcome. I'm just going to put my little timer here. I've been told in no uncertain terms not to go over my time slot. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for welcoming me onto the TEDx stage today. It's been lovely to meet some of you during the breaks and get to know a little bit about each and every one of you that I've met. Thank you. As the young lady said, my name is Fatima Mahdi, and I'm the head of TEDxYouth Qatar. I have been for the last 3 years, and I've been in education for the last 18 years. I know, I don't look it. And my talk today is about a dirty word sometimes in education, which is fun. And the idea of tapping into fun. When NIA reached out to me to ask me to put together a talk for reinvention and success during a pandemic, my first thought was, what do you mean success during a pandemic? The success was that we survived. It wasn't that the success? But then I thought about it a little bit more, and I realized that what I have experienced and what I've seen is that I've become more kind to myself when it comes to fun. This cartoon is based on a quote by Albert Einstein. And it's one of the favorite cartoons that are used by educators to try and speak about personalized learning. For a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Now, I relate most with the elephant because I'm very long-memoried. And as somebody with a long memory, I found school particularly straightforward. Because with a good memory, you really do breeze through a lot of the content that you have to go through as a student. So there was this word that was thrown around when I was a child, saying gifted. Are you gifted? Well, what does it mean to be gifted? Some people say to be gifted means you have a natural ability that you are born with. But to be talented, that's the kicker. To be talented, you take your natural gifts and you develop them to a place that no one else could achieve because they aren't you. So the kicker is to find out where your talents are, not your gifts, because your gifts, you're just born with them. It's like the color of your hair or your skin. It's irrelevant. So how do you find out if you're gifted or talented? My proposal to this group is that it's through fun that we discover our gifts and our talents. It's through tapping into fun that we develop who we are and understand who we are authentically. So in 2001, UNESCO put together the 4 pillars of learning, and they've been used everywhere to try and understand what the word quality education means. So as educators, we build on the work of experts from all around the world and all throughout history to try and understand how do we build a really strong educational system. So as you can see, these 4 pillars have learning to know, which is content-based, learning to live together. That's where we learn interpersonal skills, community skills, where we volunteer, where we dive out into our communities and learn how to be together, learn how to be polite, learn how to be people, learn how to be a society. Then there's learning to do. So I went to a Saudi school in England, and the things that we were expected to do were quite different than other children in other schools. So our only interactive doing activities was food tech, because we definitely were expected to learn how to cook. But the boys didn't get food tech, they got woodwork. And to this day, I'm salty. 25 years later, I'm still salty. And 25 years later, I still can't put together a birdhouse for love nor money. And then finally, learning to be. So when we're building an education for the next generation, we also need to help them find out what their talents are, what their gifts are, and learn how to become authentically yourself. This is really difficult to do. Trying to find out who you are as a person, that's a lifelong journey. And that's really what these 4 pillars are about, and why fun is such a powerful tool towards achieving these 4 pillars, because these all relate to lifelong learning. Now, This is where I start to prove my theory of how tapping into fun is the best way to develop an education and to develop a whole holistic child as educators. When I am in a place where I am authentically myself, where I'm in a space where I am behaving in a way that's natural to me, that connects to my gifts, that's going to be developing towards my talents, I experience that activity as fun. And if I'm not, I experience it as stress. For example, as a child, and even now to some extent, I had a natural athletic ability. So during PE lessons, I had enormous fun. I would run around. I was always fast. I was tall, so I'd grab the highest hoop. It was so much fun. But I had friends who had no coordination, didn't enjoy PE at all, and they were absolutely miserable every single lesson, dreaded it, sometimes would cry in expectation of PE coming up. That's how I felt about art. It doesn't connect to me. For me, I like very simple designs, one color, blocks, not too many patterns, and I start to get upset when things are too busy. So art lessons were horrifying for me. I sat through them confused as to why any of this was important or relevant or had any impact. And to this day, I'm really grateful that I was able to leave art classes at the age of 13, and I no longer had to look at them again. It was not authentically my space. My space ended up being mathematics because it was just straightforward for me. So when I'd go into maths lessons, I would have so much fun. The books that would make some people dread the thought of coming to the end of an equation made my heart beat faster. They made me so excited. They gave me a nice rush of adrenaline. I was relaxed, I was focused, and I was happy. I was having fun in my math classes. I was having fun in my science classes. I was having fun in my English classes. And in each of those classes, I was learning easily. In art, I was not having fun. In art, I was stressed. So what happens when you're stressed in a learning environment? Now, I did say that I had a lot of fun with the sciences, so please don't be worried about this flowchart. You're in a safe space, I'm here to protect you. This is a simplified diagram of the stress system in our bodies. So when we perceive a threat, such as a bear, this is how our body reacts to protect us. It releases hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol will release more blood sugar into our bodies, so we have more energy to run or fight. Adrenaline will increase our lung capacity, dilate our eyes so we can see things around us, and in the short term, we'll be able to remember things so much better because we need to survive. So I need to see where all the exits are, remember all the lay of the land to try and find out how I can get through this stressful situation. Now imagine this in a learning environment. Imagine being in a stressful environment that is not authentically your own, where you do not belong. Imagine being in an art school where you don't belong in that space. It's not authentically who you are. Imagine this level of stress over and over and over again, the way many of our students feel, the way many of our teachers sometimes feel, the way many of our administrators, our principals, they're in environments that are not authentically natural to them. And so they're feeling this cycle of stress, constantly releasing these hormones in their system. So what happens when these cycles are continuous? It will affect your mood. Too long exposure to cortisol in your body makes you irritable, makes you unhappy. It can lead to depression if you're constantly at that high level of cortisol-induced stress. And in your old age, that connects you to Alzheimer's. It is not a good space to be in. If you are pushing yourself to be in a space that you are not naturally in an affinity with, this is not a good decision for your life. It is so important to learn how to be yourself. How does it affect learning? So cortisol and the adrenaline rush, in the beginning, if you have more adrenaline than you have cortisol, you'll remember what's in front of you for a split second. But if you have more cortisol than you have adrenaline, then you will end up shrinking your brain. The way these hormones affect our bodies is stupendous. And it affects your memory recall, your logic centers, it affects your decision making, it affects your ability to learn. So when I'm in class and I'm experiencing stress because I'm in a space that's not authentically my own, that I experience as not fun, not only am I naturally struggling because it's not part of my natural gifts, I'm also at a disadvantage to other people. Because of the stress, it's making me shrink my brain, lack of focus, it's making me moody, it's making me irritable, I can't absorb what's happening. So when you're in a space that you wish to find out what is your authentic, natural space, ask yourself, am I having fun? Is this fun? For me, as I said earlier, mathematics was my fun. So I went into university, did a full bachelor's of mathematics. It was going great. I had to do nothing but maths all day long. I'd wake up, my first lecture was at 8 a.m., maths. My last lecture was at 6 p.m., more maths. Year 1, super fun, enjoyed it, on a first. Year 2, the best thing of my life. Then something happened in year 3. It was no longer fun. It was no longer fun for me. Something switched. And that something, sadly, was a distraction in the name of politics and activism. As I became more and more invested in politics and activism, I became less and less interested in mathematics. It wasn't fun for me anymore. So I actually stopped attending classes. It wasn't fun. It wasn't that anything else had changed. Just for me, it wasn't that my gift has changed. Didn't find maths any harder to do. It just wasn't fun. But I did become heavily involved in politics and activism, and far too many years later, it's still my full-time career. You're allowed to change. So when we're looking at how fun affects learning, I was realizing that despite the fact that I had paid an awful lot of money to study mathematics, that I was in a space where I was expected to pull out a full degree in mathematics, I wasn't enjoying my learning. I wasn't enjoying it, but I was spending hours and hours and hours and hours at rallies, putting together events, putting together signatures, activism, volunteering with this society, volunteering with that society. And I realized that that's where I wanted to put my energy and my passion, to the things that I experienced as fun. So this here is what we use to try and find the optimal zone for how to peak our performance. In this area, we call this area the bore-out. The bore-out is actually quite a new term because for some of us, when we are not engaged, when we are not interested, we are sometimes just not challenged. Our teachers put pressure on us because you need that pressure in order to perform. If there's not enough pressure, if you're in a space where things are too easy, you will be bored out of moving forwards. You will not perform. It's not fun. You will be disengaged and probably naughty. The ideal zone is here. In between moderate to high pressure from the challenge around you, your performance is at its peak. This is where you're learning new things, you're stretching your skills, you're developing your gift so that you can find yourself a talent, right? You're taking your gift, you're making it into a talent. That's the ideal zone. If I had tried to pursue a degree in arts, I don't think I would have been anywhere on this graph. I may have been up here in the zone of delusion, where I was failing, I was hating it, I was stressed, I was unhappy. I projected it on my teacher because, I was very young. I thought I hated art because of her. No, I hated art because of me. It was not my authentic place to be. So I was in that zone of delusion where I thought, you know what, if I just spend hours looking at paintings and trying things over and over again, I'm going to beat this, I'm going to get good at art. I still can't. I absolutely can't. I can't draw for toffee. The only creative things that I put my energy into are, a little bit of tinkling of the ivories, but also crochet and knitting. I love crochet and knitting. For anyone who knows anything about crochet and knitting, you'll know that the fundamentals of being a good knitter is being able to count. So I was happy in that one. As long as you can count, you can make beautiful crochet. And then, of course, comes the burnout at the very end. When there's enormous pressure on you, your performance will dip. So this is where the ideal zone is what I like to call the fun zone. Even if you're talented, even if you have a gift in that field, you have to stay in the fun zone. Just because I liked mathematics didn't mean I wanted to spend every minute of every day of my university life studying maths. And I didn't. I burned out. I was done by the third year. I was bored and done by the third year. So it's really important for us to respect fun, to relax a little bit, and also be true to ourselves. If it's not fun, ask yourself, is this authentically me? So what do you do for fun? And if you find out what you do for fun, this is where your next passion is going to grow. This is where your talent is going to develop. So for me, every sort of year I have a list of things that I try and learn how to do and where I experience fun. So one of the things I like to do is I've recently discovered lifting heavy things in the gym. That's been a lot of fun for me. I've been learning how to be strong. I've also been learning how to garden. Also been very, very fun for me. So I volunteer in a community garden in Cancer Foundation. I've recently, in the pandemic, taught myself how to do makeup, and I love it. But the kind of makeup I do is known as drag. also known as, Middle Eastern girls' makeup, because it's so much fun. I've been learning how to play the piano, badly, but it's so much fun that I'll spend hours doing it. And I've been learning how to put together little experiments that I call cooking. Never been much of a kitchen wizard, and it looks more like a chemistry experiment when I'm cooking than anything else, but I've been learning how to do it, and I've also been learning how to journal and write. It's an old passion that I'm picking up. Who knows where any of these will take me in my future? Because I experience these as fun, this is going to be where I'll be when I'm 50, perhaps. Who knows? So this is for people who don't enjoy the physical activities. So as I come to the end of my talk, being very mindful of my time, I'd like to leave you with this message. When you're in a space and somebody is struggling, they're uncomfortable, they're irritable, they're moody, they're unable to focus, maybe a little bit sweaty, they may be in a space that's not authentically theirs. They may be in a space where you have an advantage because you are authentically comfortable and they are not. So in a world where you can be anything to the people around you, please be kind. Thank you.